Northeastern Siberia, 70 degrees north latitude, 2001. A geologist named Vladimir Pitulko is working a thawing riverbank along the Yana Delta, one of the most remote places on the planet, when he pulls something from the mud. It is not bone, it is not ivory. It is a child's milk tooth, the kind a child loses when they are 6 or 7 years old, when the adult teeth push the baby teeth out from underneath. The root is still intact, the enamel is still white. He finds a second one a few meters away. That is it. 2 teeth. The entire human record of the site is 2 milk teeth. Everything else at Yana, and there is a great deal else, is made of mammoth ivory and woolly rhinoceros horn. Over 2,500 artifacts, a campfire ring, spear points so precisely crafted that the manufacturing process required fire hardening and multi-stage knapping in temperatures that would kill most people today. But of the people who made all of this, of the humans who were here at 70 degrees north, 31,600 years before the present, there is no burial, no body, no skull, no grave. 2 milk teeth and nothing else. Stay with me, because this next part is the reason this video exists. Dr. Martin Sikora at the Lundbeck Foundation Center for Geogenetics in Copenhagen, one of the most rigorous ancient DNA labs operating anywhere in the world, sequenced both teeth to 25 times and 7 times genomic coverage. That is high resolution for ancient material of this age. The radiocarbon dates confirmed it, 31,600 years before present. The oldest human remains ever recovered this far north on the planet. And the genomes revealed a population with no name, no known language, no confirmed continuation in any living human being on Earth. A population so distinct from every other human lineage known that it had diverged from the rest of us approximately 38,000 years ago. The scientists called them the Ancient North Siberians. Before you watch another frame of this, ask yourself something. When did you last hold an object a child touched 31,600 years ago? Because what Sikora's team held was exactly that. And what the DNA told them about whose child it was and what happened to that child's entire people is why you will not be able to look away. Because here is what the press releases did not say. Every article about this discovery celebrated it as a triumph, a new people found, a missing chapter named. But what the data actually shows is something else entirely. Those 2 teeth are not just a discovery. They are the only surviving evidence that an entire human lineage existed. Not a tribe, not a single family, a genetically distinct people. 38,000 years diverged from every other human on Earth. And the only proof they were ever here is the shed teeth of 2 boys in Arctic mud. The boys were between 6 and 10 years old. The site around them contained spear points made from woolly rhinoceros horn, clothing sewn from Arctic fox fur, the butchered remains of mammoths. Someone taught these children to survive at 70 degrees north in the late Pleistocene. That person's DNA is not in the teeth. That person's DNA is not anywhere. And there may not be a single living person on Earth who carries a confirmed, traceable segment of their DNA. Not one. 31,600 years before present. The last glacial maximum has not yet begun. It starts in roughly 5,000 years, and when it does, it will end these people. But right now, on the Yana steppe, the temperature is survivable. The mammoth herds are dense enough to hunt. The woolly rhinoceros leaves tracks in the snow that a group of perhaps 500 individuals have learned to follow. They are 70 degrees north of the equator. No other known humans are this far north. They should not be here. By every model of Upper Paleolithic human distribution, this latitude was uninhabitable. They were here anyway. Professor Eske Villerslev, director of the Lundbeck Foundation Center for Geogenetics, based at both Cambridge and Copenhagen, is one of the most decorated ancient DNA scientists alive. He was a co-lead on the Sikora 2019 study, and what his team confirmed is this. The individuals at Yana represent a lineage that diverged from Western Eurasians approximately 38,000 years ago, shortly after Western and Eastern Eurasians themselves separated. That means the ancient North Siberians are not a branch of either of the 2 major Eurasian migration stories. They are a third trunk, an entirely separate human trajectory that began earlier, ran further north than any other known population, and then, between roughly 20,000 and 11,000 years ago, was overwritten entirely. Not a detour, a road that was paved over. But here is where it gets strange. The people who replaced them carried a genetic signal that is still alive in millions of human beings today. The replacers survived. The people they replaced did not. Think about what that means for a moment. The most extreme cold weather survivors known to science, people who had spent thousands of years adapting to conditions that no other humans would attempt, were genetically erased, while the population that replaced them went on to populate half the northern hemisphere. Professor Vladimir Petulko of the Russian Academy of Sciences has been excavating Yana for decades. His published record of the tool assemblage there is unambiguous. The rhinoceros horn spear points require a level of manufacturing skill that is sophisticated by any standard of the Upper Paleolithic. Multi-stage, deliberate. The product of transmitted knowledge, someone teaching someone younger how to work a material harder than bone in temperatures that make concentration itself a physical act. Someone at Yana was an expert, and that expertise left no heir. The standard model of Upper Paleolithic humanity is effectively a two-lane road. Eastern Eurasians and Western Eurasians, diverging and spreading, eventually meeting again across the globe. The Yana genome adds a third lane that nobody knew existed, one that started earlier than the others, ran further into the Arctic, and was then completely overwritten. The most consequential people you have never heard of, and science only named them 6 years ago. 26,500 years before present, the last glacial maximum begins. Ice sheets extend from what is now Britain all the way to the Urals. In northeastern Siberia, temperatures drop by an estimated 8 to 15 degrees Celsius. The Mammoth Steppe, the grassland that supported both the herds and the people who hunted them, contracts. And somewhere in the gap between 26,500 and 19,000 years ago, the genetic signal of the ancient North Siberians at Yana disappears from the archaeological record. The site goes silent. Not abandoned the way a camp is abandoned. Erased the way a people is erased. The Sikora 2019 study confirmed this with stark precision. By the time human occupation resumes in northeastern Siberia after the last glacial maximum, the genetic profile of the arriving population has been completely transformed. The new occupants carry ancestry related to East Asian populations, a microblade stone tool technology spread northward from the Amur River region. The ancient North Siberian genetic signature is not detectable in any post-LGM Siberian individual sequenced to date. Not at low levels, not partially, not at all. And yet, the data said the exact opposite of what the field expected. What that means, stated plainly, the people at Yana were not driven south by the ice. They were not absorbed gradually into the populations surrounding them. In the genomic record, they were replaced between two data points with nothing in between. A people who had diverged 38,000 years ago vanished in the space between the last glacial maximum and the early Holocene, and left no skeletal remains, no grave goods, no identifiable genomic trace in the populations that followed them. Professor David Meltzer of Southern Methodist University in Dallas, a co-author on the Sikora study and one of the leading specialists in the prehistory of the Americas, put it this way. The Yana genetic signal, he said, makes its way to Native Americans, but it's doing so through various other populations that come and go on the Siberian landscape over the course of the Ice Age. Come and go. 3 words to describe entire peoples, entire lineages, entire sets of knowledge about how to survive the coldest conditions humans had ever attempted. The standard framing of last glacial maximum displacement treats it as migration, populations moving south, waiting out the cold in refugia, returning afterward. The Yana data suggests something different for the ancient North Siberians, not displacement, replacement. The people who returned to northeastern Siberia after the ice retreated were not their descendants. They were a different people entirely, different ancestry, different tools, different origins. The assumption that survival skill offers protection against replacement, that is the assumption the Yana data quietly destroys. And yet, the timeline has a complication. A related lineage was still alive, 4,000 kilometers to the south, squarely within the last glacial maximum itself, which means the story of the ancient North Siberians did not end cleanly at Yana, Lake Baikal, southern Siberia, 24,000 years before present. The last glacial maximum is at its peak. At a site called Malta, a child is buried with extraordinary care. An ivory figurine, a necklace of drilled fox teeth, a cape decorated with carved bird shapes. The burial is among the most elaborate from this entire period anywhere in Eurasia. And this child's genome, when it was eventually sequenced, showed something that connected directly back to the people vanishing in the north. The child at Malta belonged to what the field calls Ancient North Eurasians. And the Sikora 2019 study confirmed that the Ancient North Siberians at Yana are closely related to, possibly directly ancestral to, this Malta population. From the Malta lineage, approximately 40% of Native American ancestry is derived, which means the relay is real. The Yana people's genetic signal does reach the Americas, but it is not direct. It passes through at least 2 intermediate populations, diluted and transformed at each step. Here is the part nobody talks about. A child at Yana loses a tooth at 31,600 years before present. A child at Malta is buried with fox teeth at 24,000 years before present. A child born in the Yucatan Peninsula today carries the statistical echo of both, 7,600 years and 6,000 kilometers compressed into a single genome. The relay was real. The distance is the story. The popular account says the Yana people are ancestors of Native Americans. That claim is technically accurate. It is also emotionally misleading in a way that matters. The ancient North Siberian ancestry reaches Native Americans indirectly, through the Malta lineage, through subsequent admixture events, diluted to the point where no individual living Native American can point to a specific genomic segment and say, "This is Yana." The ancestry is statistical. The people are gone. The Malta child's burial goods, that ivory figurine, that fox-tooth necklace, represent one of the earliest known examples of symbolic burial in all of Siberia. The individual lived during the deepest cold of the last glacial maximum, in a landscape where survival itself was extraordinary. That this child's lineage carried a fraction of the Yana signal forward, while the Yana population itself had already vanished from the north, is not continuity. It is a photocopy of a photocopy, carried through the ice by strangers. This is what the genomic mathematics actually shows. The entire field has described the Yana to Malta to Native American relay as a story of survival and connection. But what survived is not the ancient North Siberians. What survived is approximately 2 to 5% of their genetic contribution in a population that replaced them, who were themselves later replaced by people whose descendants are now called something else entirely. The ancient North Siberians did not survive. A fraction of their genome hitched a ride. Actually, hold on. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. We talked in our last episode about the Malta child's genome and how it rewired our understanding of where so-called European ancestry actually comes from. A lot of you said that changed how you think about ancestry entirely. Does this change it further? Or does the near total erasure of the Yana people make the Malta finding feel less like a discovery and more like a consolation prize? Drop that in the comments. I read them, and I mean it, because your answer connects directly to what I'm about to show you. Beringia, the land bridge connecting Siberia to Alaska, 20,000 years before present. It is exposed. Sea levels are 120 meters lower than today. A person standing at the center of that bridge could look east toward what will become Alaska and west toward what will become Russia, and see nothing but open steppe in both directions. The ancient North Siberians have been living approximately 2,000 kilometers west of this bridge for at least 10,000 years. They have the technology. They have the cold adaptation. They have, presumably, the knowledge of the land. They do not cross, or if they do, they leave no detectable signal on the other side. Everything I just told you, hold on to it, because it is about to mean something completely different. Villerslev's 2019 team confirmed this directly. The genetic ancestry of the first Americans traces back to the ancestral Native American population, a mixture of ancient North Eurasian ancestry from the Malta lineage and ancient East Asian ancestry, but shows no distinct ancient North Siberian contribution that can be separated from the Malta relay. The ancient North Siberians, as a genomic entity in their own right, did not cross Beringia. What crossed was the diluted relay, the echo, the photocopy. The popular image of the peopling of the Americas is a determined migration. hunters following mammoths across a land bridge. The Yana data forces a more uncomfortable picture. A people who were at the threshold, who had spent thousands of years adapted to exactly this climate and geography, who were replaced before they could walk through the door their more diluted descendants would eventually open. The people who crossed Beringia were not the Yana people. They were the people who outlasted the Yana people, carrying a partial echo of Yana ancestry in a genome that was, by then, mostly something else. The Americas were not populated by the world's most extreme Arctic survivors. They were populated by the people who outlasted them. In central Alaska, 11,500 years before present, 2 infant girls were buried together beneath a hearth. Their Athabascan descendants have given them names: Sakshitian Tiedegai and Yekanen Tiedegai. Their genomes, sequenced by Dr. J. Victor Moreno-Mayer and colleagues from the University of Copenhagen in 2018, carry the full ancestral Native American signal, the relay complete, the Yana fraction present but unresolvable as a distinct component. These 2 infants are the documented genetic endpoint of a 20,000-year relay race. The people who started that race are not represented in their genomes as anything separable from the noise. The land bridge was open. The ancient North Siberians were adapted for exactly this environment. The only explanation for their absence in American genomes is that they were already gone, already replaced, before the crossing window opened. Proximity plus adaptation does not equal survival. The Yana data proves that 4 times over, and the fault line left by that replacement maps onto a geographic boundary in present-day Siberia, almost exactly corresponding to the territorial boundary between 2 living language families whose speakers have been in conflict over that same land for 400 years. Some replacements take 20,000 years to finish. Kamchatka Peninsula, Russian Far East, present day. About 1,500 Itelmen people live here, one of the smallest and most genomically isolated indigenous communities in all of Russia. A 2024 population genomic study confirmed something remarkable about them. The Itelmen carry the highest fraction of ancient Paleo-Siberian ancestry among any living population on Earth. Ancient Paleo-Siberian, the lineage that replaced the ancient North Siberians, and whose own ancestral individual, the 9,800-year-old Kolyma 1 individual recovered from the Duvany Yar site in northeastern Siberia, Villerslev himself called the missing link of Native American ancestry. There is a woman we will call Daria, a composite drawn from documented Itelmen demographic records because the actual individuals are private people who have not consented to be named in a documentary. She is 54 years old. She speaks a language, Itelmen, with fewer than 100 fluent speakers left on Earth, and she carries in her genome a signal that is the closest living echo of Yana that science has so far been able to measure. She does not know this. No one has told her. This isn't just ancient history. This is in your cells right now, or something very close to it. The Kolyma 1 individual showed approximately 2/3 genome similarity to living Native Americans, the closest genetic proximity ever documented outside the Americas. Kolyma 1 belonged to the ancient Paleo-Siberian lineage, itself formed from the mixing of ancient North Eurasian ancestry, that Malta-derived signal carrying the Yana echo, and ancient East Asian ancestry, sometime between 20,000 and 25,000 years ago. The ancient Paleo-Siberian population is the genetic heir of the ancient North Siberians, not their direct descendants. They're inheritors in the way a language inherits words from a dead tongue, carrying the shape of something gone without carrying the thing itself. The Itelmen woman mending fishing net on Kamchatka did not inherit this consciously. She inherited it the way you inherit the angle of a cheekbone, from a lineage so far back that the intermediaries have no names. But the genome does not forget. It is a document that cannot be edited, only copied, and somewhere in her cells, a fraction of what the Yana boys carried is still being copied 31,600 years later. Her language, Itelmen, is a language isolate, no confirmed relatives in any family. Linguists have hypothesized a connection to the Na-Dene language family of North America. That hypothesis remains disputed. The field has not settled it, and this episode will not present it as more than what it is, a question still being asked. But the question itself is worth holding. a language spoken by fewer than 100 people on the Kamchatka Peninsula, possibly carrying a phonological echo of the same relay that carried Yana ancestry across Beringia to Alaska. A thread so attenuated it may not exist, or maybe the only thread left. The abstract becomes specific here. The ancient North Siberians were a population. Daria is a person. The connection between them is real, measurable, published, peer-reviewed. But it passes through the ancient Paleo-Siberian relay. It is not the distance between grandparent and grandchild. It is the distance between a letter and the paper it was copied onto, twice, by strangers who never knew the original existed. And here is the question that has not been answered. The ancient Paleo-Siberian lineage, Daria's genetic heritage, should, by every population model, have crossed Beringia in greater numbers than the data shows. The models predict a larger ancient Paleo-Siberian contribution to Native American ancestry than the actual genomes contain. Something happened between 9,800 years ago and the major Beringian crossings that reduced the signal before it arrived. What happened has not been confirmed. A genomics laboratory. The instrument doesn't matter. What matters is the output, a file. Approximately 2.5 billion base pairs from a child who shed a tooth 31,600 years ago, sequenced at 25 times coverage. The computer in that laboratory holds more of this child's biology than the entire living population of the planet combined. That is not a metaphor, that is a measurement. The Sikora 2019 study calculated that the ancient North Siberian genetic component in present-day populations is not independently detectable. Where it survives at all, the ancient North Siberian signature is subsumed within ancient North Eurasian ancestry, which is itself present at less than 20% in most West Eurasian populations and less than 5% in most East Asian populations. The specific ancient North Siberian component within that fraction has never been independently resolved in a living individual's genome. Not at low confidence, not tentatively, never. The Yana boys are, in the most precise genomic terms available, more present in the laboratory that sequenced them than in any living human being on Earth. There are 3 things this study revealed. The second changed the migration story. The third is the one that changes everything. There are approximately 8 billion people alive right now. Each of them carries some fraction of the post-LGM Siberian genetic signal. The number of people who carry an independently confirmed, statistically significant, unambiguously ancient North Siberian specific genomic segment, that number is 0. Not negligible, not contested, 0. Not 1, 0. The 2 boys at Yana left more of themselves in a sequencing lab in Copenhagen than in any living bloodline on Earth. And the science still cannot confirm whether they left any living descendant at all. This is not a tragedy framed for dramatic effect. It is the mathematical consequence of being a genetically replaced population. The ancient North Siberians were not forgotten. They were overwritten. The only reason we know they existed is that 2 children, at the age when teeth fall out, lost them in permafrost that lasted 31,600 years. The permafrost remembered. We did not. There is one more piece of data worth sitting with. The Yana 1 genome, the higher coverage tooth, contains approximately 2% Neanderthal ancestry, consistent with other Upper Paleolithic humans. That fraction is measurable, traceable, assigned. The Neanderthal component of a 31,600-year-old child is more precisely documented in living populations than the child's own lineage. The species that went extinct 40,000 years ago left a more confirmed, traceable genetic signal in the living than the ancient North Siberians did. The irony is not symbolic. It is a data artifact of population replacement, and it tells you exactly how complete that replacement was. If the ancient North Siberian signal is truly undetectable in the living, and so far it is, then what they leave behind is not a genetic presence, it is a genomic silence. And one emerging area of research is beginning to ask whether the absence of a lineage can itself leave a biological mark, not a gene, a gap where a gene should be. The ancient archaeogenomics database, maintained by Professor David Reich's lab at Harvard Medical School, currently holds genome data for over 10,000 ancient individuals. It is the most comprehensive resource of its kind in existence. Of those 10,000 plus ancient genomes, 2 are unambiguously ancient North Siberian. 2. The field has been adding hundreds of new samples per year since 2019. The ancient North Siberian total has not moved. No new Yana-type individual has been found anywhere in the Yana-Kolyma corridor in the years since. A 2024 study from the Institute of Cytology and Genetics in Novosibirsk, reconstructing the genetic history of modern Siberian populations, confirmed that while ancient North Eurasian-related ancestry is detectable in several living Siberian groups, the specific ancient North Siberian signature, distinguishable from the broader ancient North Eurasian cluster, remains statistically unresolvable in any living genome. The search has not been abandoned. The result has not changed. What they found next changed everything they thought they knew about this. Or rather, what they did not find did. Professor Reich has written about what the field calls ghost populations, ancestral groups whose genetic signature can only be inferred from the shape of what is missing in the genomes of their descendants, as one of the central unresolved challenges in archaeogenomics. The ancient North Siberians are not quite a ghost population in the technical sense. They are something rarer. A documented population, physically confirmed, genomically sequenced, with no confirmed living descendants. The documentation is 2 teeth. The absence is 8 billion people. There is one place where a faint ancient North Siberian type signal has been reported, not in Siberia, not in the Americas, but in a population in a completely unexpected part of the world. The researchers who found it described it in their own words as unexpected. That analysis is still under peer review. This episode will not cite it as confirmed because it is not confirmed, but it exists. The search is still running. The absence of ancient North Siberian individuals from the post-LGM record is not a gap waiting to be filled. It is, at this point, a confirmed shape. The outline of a non-presence consistent across thousands of samples from dozens of labs across multiple continents. The ancient North Siberians are not missing. They are absent. Those are different scientific categories. Missing implies the data will come. Absent implies the data has already spoken. The one piece of evidence that would resolve this question, a post-LGM Yana-type individual, dated anywhere between 26,000 and 15,000 years ago, recovered from anywhere in the Yana-Kolyma corridor, does not exist in the published record. The permafrost conditions that gave us the 2 teeth should, statistically, have preserved other remains if they existed to preserve. The absence of those individuals in the record is either a gap in sampling, or it is confirmation that there were no post-LGM ancient North Siberians to sample. The field has not ruled out either possibility, and it cannot. The 2 Yana teeth are currently held in the collections of the Russian Academy of Sciences, controlled temperature, controlled humidity, because they are irreplaceable. There is no other physical evidence that the ancient North Siberians existed. No burial, no monument, no art. 2 milk teeth, the kind a child loses when the adult teeth come in, and a genomic file on a hard drive in Copenhagen. That is the complete material record of a lineage that diverged from yours 38,000 years ago. If you are watching this and you carry West Eurasian ancestry, you carry approximately 10 to 20% ancient North Eurasian heritage, which itself holds a fraction of the Yana relay. If you carry Native American or East Asian ancestry, your ancient North Eurasian component is lower but present. The fraction of that ancestry that is specifically ancient North Siberian derived is, at current genomic resolution, statistically unresolvable. You may carry a single nucleotide, a single base pair, from a child who lost a tooth in the Yana permafrost 31,600 years ago. The science cannot confirm it. The science cannot rule it out. What the data shows is that this lineage was in the relay that eventually reached you. What cannot be known is whether any of it arrived intact. If you have ever actually wondered where you come from, not the family story, not the ancestry test result, but the real biological depth of that question, then subscribe, because the next episode examines a lineage that did survive against every genomic prediction, and the data behind that survival is more unsettling than anything in this one. The story of the ancient North Siberians is told in most places as a story of discovery, a new people found, a missing chapter in human prehistory named and celebrated. This episode ends with a different frame. a people documented precisely at 25 times genomic coverage and confirmed absent from the living record of our species. The discovery did not restore them. It measured their absence with higher resolution than anyone had managed before. That is what science does with things that are truly gone. It learns, with increasing precision, exactly how gone they are. There is one finding still under analysis at a European institution, not yet published, not yet peer-reviewed, not citable as fact. A single mutation that appears only in genomes with confirmed high ancient North Eurasian ancestry, in a distribution pattern inconsistent with the known expansion routes of that lineage. If it is confirmed as ancient North Siberian specific, it would be the first direct molecular witness to a people the field has classified as absent from the living. The lab has not published. The analysis continues. The tooth is still in the ice.